of unemployment in Nigeria are multidimensional. And the good news is I'm aware that we're not lacking in ideas on how to resolve our unemployment challenges in Nigeria. There's a current National Employment Action Plan, there's the Industrial Revolution Plan, there's the Economic Recovery Growth Plan by the current administration. All the elements that have been outlined in there, even at a structural level, at a programmatic level, if well implemented, will lift millions of youth out of the reality of unemployment. The signal of unemployment on Nigeria as a country really speaks to quite a number of things. The fact that people are credentialed nowadays and employers still then have to spend a lot of money recruiting, they have to spend a lot of money retraining just for feet. So if we dimension unemployment in Nigeria, it's not only strictly about the fact that people go to school, get a degree, and not able to fit into the labor market. Because as a HR manager, I had observed that even when there were jobs, it was sometimes difficult to upload the Nigerian trained into those opportunities. Obviously because there's standards and measurements that make for recruitment criteria. So critical analysis, things that sometimes the education system in Nigeria is yet to catch up with.
Higher institutions of learning in Nigeria churn out about 300,000 graduates every year. Many of these graduates are, however, disconnected from the real demands of the labor market.
There's a lot of credentialism in this environment where young people reduce, what they can add to companies at the level of their credentials. The issue of employability really lies around skill mismatches, where what is coming from the supply side of the education system doesn't match the needs of the demand side. So the economy has specific sophisticated skill sets that it needs as factor of production, but it's not coming or being delivered by the supply side, that is the education side, which is where employability lies or resides. We know that there's been a lot of dysfunction in the education system. So at the levels of basic numeracy, basic grammar, basic etiquette, the lack of an efficient technical and vocational education system that enables people to go on the knowledge track and also the vocational track. So the notion of not being employable has a lot to do with foundational skill sets.
Some of these problems arise from the very basics of making a career choice.
My professional career actually started many years ago. I'm one of those whose parents insisted that we worked every holiday. So my first job was as a receptionist at the Lambo Foundation as a 17-year-old. That job actually took me into Kirikiri Maximum Prison. So I learned very early as a child on a research project that career choices matter, relationships also matter. Post that experience, I actually then got admission into the University of Lagos. I studied biochemistry, not because it was my career choice, but because my father at the time really desired for me to become a doctor. I remember being in second year and wanting so desperately to change to industrial relations and personnel management. But my dad had a conversation with me at the time and said, not under my roof, unless you're willing to fend for yourself. Now, my father loves me a lot, but I think that, there's something about parents aspiring and scripting career choices. And the reason why I share this example really is just to talk about how my career has evolved based on my experience as a student. I learned very early that what we study sometimes within the Nigerian education system should not, but sometimes can limit how we navigate into the contemporary labor market in Nigeria. So with a degree in biochemistry, I proceeded to the UK and I faced a stint of unemployment, and it was a precarious experience. knowing that you have a credential and being told where you're coming from, that all you need to be is be a graduate, and then you can transition into the labor market. But I got, after maybe the 20th rejection letter, writing applications the way we write applications in Nigeria, I begged to apply for, different roles. I was fortunate to walk into a career center. Having a conversation with a counselor really was a light bulb moment. For the first time in my life, I had a career compass. It was easy after she deployed the career tool, to see that my strengths actually laid in areas such as development, human resources, marketing, strategy. And for the first time, I had a career compass. I remember walking out of a career center and saying to myself, one day I'm going to do this in my country. Because it's one thing to be unemployed. It's another to have, a navigator, something that allows you to, wake up in the morning and say, look, these are my goals. This is what I'm trying to aspire to. So that self-education, that extra education on the layer of my credential from Unilag gave me the power, let me use the word power, to start channeling, where I was good at. It helped me with my application process. And then I got a job in a multinational where I then was in the human resource department in charge of volume recruitment of graduates. And that started the journey for me into the employability space. The idea to pioneer a career center really was strengthened by several things. There was a reform agenda by Minister of Education, Dr. Obieze many years ago. So our career center came out as one of 6 of those career centers. It didn't help also that I had, before that role, I had been working on a project where we needed just 15 people, but we had hundreds of thousands of applications. So it was very clear that, one step after the other, there needed to be a lighthouse for young people who are navigating unemployment but don't even know what to do with themselves.
In creating that lighthouse, Dayton Ogo started After School Graduate Development Center.
AGDC came up and it's still running. So what we did in that pioneer effort was to challenge, people on the supply side and the demand side. And what I mean by that is I got a lot of my friends in the HR community to sit down at a focus group session and say, what is it that is lacking in the young person? And how can we hedge that on a short term? So we'll put a curricula together that just addresses some of the competencies that employers are looking for in the typical young graduate. The purpose of the curriculum was to ensure that when a young person passes through, in 4 weeks, they're ready and fit for the challenges of a contemporary labor market, partnering with partners in the donor world and also on the demand side. After the training, we also learned that there was a lot of oversubscription. So even when a funder gave you space for 70, you were getting up to 10,000 applications. So we had to go within the university system to see how we could set up career centers so that the learning that is happening in that 4 weeks can be more systemic. What we should then be doing as a nation is ensuring that from year 1 or from even pre-matric, the young person knows the demands of a contemporary labor market and start to align themselves and prepare themselves even to create jobs for themselves. So career solutions were very key. Igniting enterprise was very key to the work that we did. And the curriculum was also framed working with the end user in mind. So HR directors, HR managers, business owners, so that when young people go through the intervention, then they're able, to find their own way in the labor market.
AGDC is doing a good job of preparing young graduates for employment. But beyond that, more still needs to be done.
We want a productive nation, a functional nation where young people can go to school and find opportunities to live up to their highest potential. How will that happen? By ensuring that we have efficient education systems, by ensuring that duty bearers also live up to their responsibilities at the governance and leadership level. I think that if we can unleash, self-discovery within our education system, we would resolve even our technical and vocational system. People will then be doing, what they're creative and what they're good at. And maybe we'll even have some regional focus in that area as well. The notion of people not being employable, I'm very careful not to use labels or to generalize. I would say that everyone has potential. Everyone is uniquely and innately equipped. And what an education system should ideally do is to unleash those capabilities early. But what we've had post-colonial education experience is that people were groomed in a particular way, get a degree, go into the public service. But times are now contemporary. I'm actually on the last leg of research that I'm currently doing as a doctoral researcher at the University College London, at the Institute of Education. And what I'm taking away from research is employability can really be about cultural fit. So every company has its own culture, has its own values. Young people or anyone really being able to market themselves as the ideal candidate for opportunities within particular firms. We've heard about people having the right skills, the right attitude, the right competencies that fit, into like modern day 21st century companies or company environments, so for lack of a better word. So being employable really is about fit. When we look at countries where we have a population of about 200 million, Nigeria is the only one that has a 60% youth population. So the solution for youth employment also would have to come from within that population. So there needs to be engagement, more engagement. What do young people want to do? When you think about work, people say there are no jobs, but there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work when there are problems, so the ability to also wake up our problem-solving, skill sets will take all of us. We cannot, I think that when we dimension unemployment in Nigeria now, we have to be multifaceted. It's something that all of us are going to have to put all hands on deck to resolve. Yes, we can blame the government for, limited policies that also allow people either to school and work, the issues that are going on in the education sector, we must fix some of these broken systems. What we want is a productive nation.
While the government tackles the problem of unemployment and employability, the works of individuals like Dayton Ogo is creating remarkable impact.
Since 2007, when we pioneered, I think that the landscape has really evolved. Pioneering youth employability, an opportunity for young people to get a second chance at what the competitive labor market requires from them. I think it's since evolved into other firms doing similar. It's evolved into even governments at state and federal level doing, responding to the urgent challenge. I think that the journey ahead is still quite far. The private sector also has a skin in the game. They have an incentive to ensure that young people transition out of the schooling system more employable, more ready for the world of work, because they usually pick up the reskilling, they pick up the retraining, they pick up the recruitment cost, which over the years has become, quite high. So there's really an incentive for that multi-stakeholder approach I mentioned earlier on. I'm aware that there's a triple helix collaboration being sponsored by the NESG. So the role of the private sector clearly is pivotal in ensuring that we have, more private employment services, even more public employment services are strengthened, because young people obviously need those services. What is fundamental now is that a young person who is educated and has no opportunity to work must also get extra support at the level of, how to navigate the experience. I believe it is one thing to be unemployed. It's another to know what to do with yourself whilst you're experiencing that challenge. But the good thing is everyone is skilled, everyone is capable. And then for the young person, if you're caught in all of this dynamic, please don't, put your life on hold waiting for government to get serious. You've got to take your own human potential very, very seriously by reading, by being, taking, time to also self-educate. Now, more than ever before, there's a lot of information online. I remember saying to a young person the other day, if I'm a student caught in the recent, dynamic in the governance issues right now, I would go and look for a course that is similar to what I'm studying, because I can guarantee that there's content online and you self-develop. You owe yourself that much. Do not put your life on hold waiting for government to get with the program. You have a responsibility to educate by studying. And the bulk of work, when we discuss work and when we discuss career education, at the end of the day, it's you being self-aware, being clear on what you can contribute to the world, and going out there to problem solve. Employers are looking for value adders. They're looking for people that can solve a problem within their own, company ecosystem. That is what you want to position as. That is what makes you employable. Being a problem solver, being adaptable, and not just focused on what you can derive from a system, but what you can contribute into that system as well. I think to resolve unemployment, obviously the economy has to be strong. The better an economy is, the more jobs are created. The more we have the right mix of passive and active labor market policies, the more you create jobs. The stronger linkages we make between education and the labor market, the more jobs people are able to navigate into. The stronger we unleash entrepreneurial, competencies in young people, the more jobs will be created. We have to be more deliberate around synergies between the demand side and the supply side, because it's also important for the country to have the right mix of policies that ensure that our labor market information systems are also very strong. Nigeria needs to sign on the convention to ensure that there are more public employment services. ND is doing some work, but it needs to be more contemporary, so that when even employers put money into ITF and all of these government parastatals, they are working in a way that unleashes the most, creativity of the most numbers of youth. We need to do that like yesterday.
While it is clear that government at all levels has a lot to do to solve the problem of unemployment, people seeking employment also have a role to play.
Being employable is not rocket science. For everything that you want to become, there's a demand for that thing. What you need to become maybe is become more skilled, become more ready to meet the demands of the kind of employers you want to work for. And, there's issues about self-reliance and independence. You must be able to, your goal is sustainable livelihood. Your goal is to become philanthropic as well. In a place where there's so many problems, it's also an invitation for us to be creative. So I would also say to that young person, don't lament the situation. It's an invitation to create. We've seen what's happening in the tech space. We've seen what's happening in Nollywood. Take it as a demand on your potential, which is already there. Everyone has potential. Everyone has something to contribute. The challenge that we might have is the rigor to find the knowledge that we then need to put into action. That is one fundamental flaw I found. I remember I talked about implementation skills earlier on. Is to go and see what it is that every sector demands from you. Whatever sector you've chosen to go and play in, what are those things that are demanded, and then align yourself to those demands. What can you do? The one question I ask across an interview table a lot is, what can you do? And you have to do some self-study. You have to, take a retreat with yourself and answer that question. What can I do? Then give that as a gift to the world. I think that the advice for a young person also is, in this era where there's so much information, social media should be an enabler to you. It should not be something that is stealing your focus or stealing your time. It's something that is developing you, that you're using to impact your world. You're using to educate yourself, and you're using it to become employable and also become an employer of labor. There's information out there for you. You position and become the solution to, of course, the many challenges that we have at a local, national, and federal level.